domestic violence cases spiking up or any kind of violence or abuse.
We have realized that there has been a significant spike in the cases of violence against women.
So what goes on your mind or your team of counselors? How do you deal with it?
Yes, we get angry.
In what other ways can someone be a part of an organization?
Every one of us can be an advocate of gender justice. If you just start believing in the idea that each one of us has to be treated with equity.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ಪ್ರಜಾವಾಹಿನಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ನಾನು ಅರ್ಚನಾ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ. ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಲೈಫ್ ಸ್ಟೈಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ನವೆಂಬರ್ 25ನೇ ತಾರೀಕಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯತೆ ಇದೆ. United Nations has designated November 25th as the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. And today we have Meenakshi Giridhar from Durga, a citizen sector organization who has been working in creating gender equal spaces in India. Durga has been in national news for its innovative project Durga Alarms in the buses. They have also been creating safe spaces for women and also instilling a sense of security. Meenakshi, being a diverse person, has been an integral part of Durga for over 8 years. She not only leads corporate workshops but also manages relations with government and quasi-government agencies. She creates, modulates and also wears many hats in the organization. And today she is with us to speak about gender justice. Namaskara Meenakshi.
Namaskara.
Nama ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ.
Thank you so much for having me on board today.
Me Too movement and women coming out and sharing their stories has definitely given a platform to speak about the women's safety and also the violence they have been going through. And we all have been aware that speaking out and seeking help is definitely never a norm in our society. How far do you think have we reached in fighting this scenario?
So, like you rightly said, the Me Too movement did give women the courage to now start talking about the various instances of violence that they faced or the abuse that they faced. I also feel that a lot more has to be done in this space, primarily because I believe that the Me Too did give a platform to women to talk about it, but there has to be some form of sustainability to this conversation. This conversation must not end with a man coming forward and saying men too get raped or men too have issues. Unfortunately for us, we live in a very gender divided society. Everything is dictated by the masculine gender, and in many ways we have to toe that line. So when we are caught in this little spiral, I would urge a lot of women to continue to have these engagements, continue to keep talking about this. Even if it has not happened to you, to be able to be an ally to someone who has faced this kind of violence or faced some instance that put them on the back foot gives a lot of strength to women who are fighting this every day.
I totally get that. So where do you root this up to? What is the root cause of abuse?
If you look back in time, I think abuse always existed. As long as I think the two genders existed, we've always at some stage had instances of violence against women being perpetrated. And here I'm not restricting myself to modern history, but I'm talking even about mythology, where we have instances of Draupadi, Shurpanakha, or even Sita going through different forms of instances that put them down as a woman and did not celebrate the femininity in the divine femininity that we would all want it to be celebrated in, but in some sense relegated them to positions of a lower cadre than men. So if I have to think about it, I personally believe that ever since the society emerged or evolved into creating a structure that relegated women to the back and said that a man was more important, or the man was the leader in all of this, or the man was the more important gender in the conversation, is I think the start of
Physical
all our
power.
problem. Yes.
Why do more often than not women sustain the abuse? What do you think?
To probably simplify it in some sense, I would like to draw your attention to the kind of instances of violence or abuse women face, right? Today we live in a society where at least for the first time, women are stepping up and saying, if my husband does not provide me with emotional support, I do not want to be in this relationship. Or if my husband is raising his hand against me, I will not stay in this relationship. 2 generations behind us, we were not taught this. We were always expected to handle this, deal with it, not complain about it, put up with it, ignore it, and at best shut it from the rest of the world.
True.
So given all of this, the amount of guilt we were placing on a woman's shoulder is tremendous. And if you look around you and talk to the women around you, how many times have we even empathized with a woman who has come to us and said, this guy is looking at me uncomfortably? Right? We have so many instances of girls coming and saying, this guy is constantly staring at my breast. What do we typically say? You should have covered up. Who's asking you to walk around without your dupatta? You smoke, you drink, and that is why you're in this situation. We have not explained to women, or we have not held their hands and said that what you're going through is a problem. Given all of this as a background, how often can women really voice what is going on? And to come out not feeling less of themselves, and to feel empowered that they are taking the steps in the right direction.
It becomes definitely a challenge to even speak out.
Absolutely.
And you're targeted. Even though you speak it out, you may not even get justice for whatever you're seeking for.
That's another level.
Is it a structural consequence? Does it have anything to do with nuclear or joint families? Or is it more demographic, that rural and urban settings are making a difference in the violence women are going through?
Personally, with all our experience having worked with women for so many years, and working with women in a very structured format happened when we started Durga. But prior to that, if you looked at where we come from, our families, our backgrounds, you realize that in many ways that women are never ever allowed to express themselves well enough. So the issue of facing abuse or violence or any kind of distress is not specific to a certain demographic. I think wherever women are, violence is perpetrated against them. So it can be simple instances of somebody whistling at you to somebody actually raping you and molesting you.
Definitely not restricted to a particular community or a place.
Not at all.
So do you think there's a spike in this particular pandemic situation? Do you see any domestic violence cases spiking up, or any kind of violence or abuse that has shot up?
Yes. In our own little spaces that we work in, and with whatever categories of women that we have worked with, we have realized that there has been a significant spike in the cases of violence against women. And fortunately today we are also seeing this spike because women are choosing to report. So far women were choosing not to report about this, not to talk about this. But today we have reached a point where women are taking that first step forward. So while you're saying that there is a spike, I'm thinking that this is not a spike, that this is a space where now women at least are coming forward and talking about it.
True.
In the earlier format, women would have been urged not to talk about it.
So what are the options available for people in distress? And organizations like Durga, what can you offer them? To what extent can you offer them help?
So Durga works on, we have various elements of our work that are centered around women's safety. So when we are talking now specifically about women who are survivors of domestic violence, we have an initiative called Take a Step.
Okay.
We urge women to start taking that first step to reporting crime that has happened against them. And most often, what we have realized is a lacuna is that women, while they do face violence, do not know what to do, or do not know whom to approach, or what is their next step. We from Durga, we assign a case worker with that person, with that survivor. This case worker holds her hand, counsels her, gives her a hearing space where this lady is able to express herself completely, talk about what she has endured. Then we start intervening by either connecting her to the police depending on the severity of the case. Depending on what she wants, we also arrange to get a lawyer for her. We arrange for psychotherapy for her to be able to start taking control of her emotions and her physical space. And in many cases, we've also been able to tie up with shelter homes so that we provide a safe space for this woman when she reaches out to us. So this is an initiative that works directly for addressing women who are survivors of domestic violence. The other layer of our work does center around how do we make a woman feel safe in the first place. So we equip women and young girls to understand this kind of behavior, to be able to build life skills within them, to be able to address this harassment themselves, and in extreme cases to also then escalate it to somebody else, to either take it to a police station or take it to the lawyer or take it to some other authority. Around this whole work of ours, where we center our work around the woman and her safety, the other areas that we also work in are communities. We work very closely with the community that she comes from. So whether it is your active bystanders, people on the streets, your street vendors, your shop owners who occupy a certain space for a long period of time, who are available there to be the first responders to her when she is calling out in distress, we work with them we equip them to be able to respond to these kind of instances. Then we work with the spaces. So when we were working with spaces, we installed something called the panic alarm in BMTC buses. Again, the idea was to address instances of violence against women and at the place where it happens. So instead of waiting for it to be captured on a CCTV camera later and then you dissect the issue, we wanted women to start feeling safe at that moment. So if there was a mechanism of being able to raise an alarm and take control of that space.
But some cases, the sensitivity is too much that people may not be ready to approach the police. They want it to be in a very closed environment. So how do you deal with such cases where they want to reconcile with their families? So how do you deal with such situations?
So our caseworker who is assigned to this survivor will spend a lot of time counseling her, talking to her, and seeing if there is a way. See, basically we leave the agency in the woman's hand. If she wants, we will help her and assist her in taking it to the higher authorities. But many times women feel that if they have someone whom they can talk to, whom they can share this with, in many ways they have the answers within themselves.
True.
They know what to do. They just need someone to validate that for them. That is where our caseworker steps in, helps her to sort that chaos in her mind, go through the session of conversations, understand where she wants to go after this, what is her next step, guide her through the next steps, and then hold her hand through the entire process.
So apart from empowering them, listening to them, what other things can you do? You said that you teach them some life skills. So in what way that's going to help them? What are your programs? So that, just give me a brief intro so that we'll understand better about it.
Sure. So like I mentioned earlier, all our work is centered around women and women's safety. So keeping her at the center of everything that we do. Our interventions are also designed to help her to be able to address your everyday instances of harassment. Now what we have as a organization consciously started to focus on, and we've always consciously focused on, has been to address your everyday instances of harassment that each one of us faces. At least 99% of us on a daily basis has had somebody who has whistled at us inappropriately, has looked at us inappropriately, called us different things, sang lewd songs to us, even groped us, felt us up, pinched us. And in all of these instances, what has happened is it has made us feel less of ourselves, made us want to go back home, wash ourselves thoroughly, and in some sense rid ourselves of that dirty feeling that we were left with. We want to address that dirty feeling. We want to address these everyday instances of harassment that stops you from going to your job, stops you from living your life fully. A lot of girls are pulled away from education because of these kind of instances. So from Durga's end, we want to put the spotlight where it belongs, not on the girl, but on the man who created this problem. So we work with women to equip them to be able to understand where this behavior comes from, and when this happens to her, how does she quickly resolve it and claim back that space and move on with her job. So when we started to work with women, we realized now spaces were becoming unsafe. So how do we make the space safe? And that's when we came up with the Durga alarm in BMTC buses. Today about 150 buses ply on our streets with the alarm, and because of all our work and the recognition that we've received through our work, this has become a central government mandate that all buses in the country must mandatorily have CCTV cameras and panic alarm systems installed in them. Now this resolved one aspect of the spaces. Then we started to think, what if we had to start the engagement a little earlier? We were talking to adult women. What if we had started the conversation with 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds and started to explain to them about what kind of behavior was appropriate, what kind of behavior is inappropriate, how do you address bullying, how do you address sexual harassment? And that's when we started to work very closely with schools, government schools, and the responses there was significant, because here we were addressing literally moldable clay. We were talking to children who were still on that threshold of being adolescents, who wanted to do the right thing, did not know where to get that information, and here we were helping them understand that better. Through this journey, then we started to work with college students to create something called safe and gender equitable campuses. So again, the conversation started with how do we get, for us we feel that the youth is the future of our country, and if we did not tap into that large population who was going to make a significant difference to this world, we were missing the conversation. So we engaged with college students, where we built within them systems of safety and the conversations around gender equity, where each one of them in their own little ways started to imbibe or have conversations, even innovate, create, ideate on the concepts of safety and gender. And that is where our voice labs were born. And today actually I'm very proud to tell you that we will be hosting India's first online virtual summit in December with only the youth involved in it.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
This is a 3-day long summit where we are having speakers from various walks of life, taking us through various conversations on gender, feminism, gender justice and every other thing under the spectrum.
We can sit and crib about the abuse that's happening, or take initiatives as such from the ground level, where the children, the schools, the government schools, the colleges, everybody are addressed and you are ready for the next generation with a better outcome, right?
Yeah.
That's great. You have set the standards from the school children to the college. So what about the working sector, the corporate sector? Do you have any programs designed for them also?
Yes. So we have engaged very closely with a lot of corporates in the past, and even now it's an ongoing thing. On the one hand, we address gender sensitivity as a subject. The organizations have been mandated now to implement something called the POSH, right? The Prevention of Sexual Harassment at the Workplace. Now, POSH being mandated by the government also puts the responsibility on the organization to ensure that their spaces are gender neutral as well as are safe for women. So we conduct safety workshops, we conduct gender sensitivity workshops. I also sit in the POSH committees of a few organizations, and all of this keeping the safe space in mind and empowering those workspaces to start recognizing that sexual harassment at the workplace must not exist.
No, that's definitely a required thing and norm which is clear, but people still think they are obliged to just go take the steps they want to take. So what do you have to say about the men who are in that spot? It's like you're empowering women, empowering girls, teaching them life skills. So who are responsible for such actions that's happening?
So here what we want from men is to be allies to us. right? We want an ecosystem with both men and women, because quite literally, biologically too, we cannot exist without the other. And we want to address that tiny fraction of the male population that indulges in this kind of behavior. 90% of the men want to do the right things, but they do not know what to do. So we work with them to help them understand what kinds of behavior of theirs has a repercussion on women. I'll give you a classic example. Now, we are working with the BMTC drivers and conductors in Bangalore. Our mandate is to work with at least about 900 drivers and conductors.
And
So-
all of them are women.
Men.
Men, okay.
This is a male dominated organization. Now, there are women too who participate in our workshops. And here, these men again come from very strong biases or conditioning. Now, here they're not coming from a space that they, want to do the wrong thing, but they have been conditioned to believe in certain wrong things, right? So, conditioning, if I have to take a few steps back, I will have to tell you that when girls and boys are born, we treat them differently, right? When a girl is born, we feel sorry that the family had a girl child, and we do everything possible to kind of structure her life and to mold her into what we believe is the right way to behave. So we go down to the level of policing her clothes, her how she behaves, how she sits, how she talks, how she stands, everything we kind of structure. Now when a boy is born, because ours is a patriarchal culture, we celebrate, right? We just feel very good that here is a man who is going to be taking our conversation forward. He's going to take our lineage forward, and he's going to represent us in many ways. So do we even teach him anything? No, right? We don't tell him how he should dress, what he should do, how he should speak, how he should behave. We don't even tell him how he should cross his legs. So much so that we don't even restrict what he does.
True.
Right? And one of the classic examples I always like to point out is in India, we don't even stop the guy from peeing on the road. That's acceptable. He has a bladder, he should go relieve himself anywhere. What we forget is the women also have bladders, and women also want to relieve themselves, but we are conditioned, right? So this conditioning is not something that is happening very, structurally and, followed, in principle by every family. But in many ways, we are reiterating that. We are telling women that you are less of a human. Here is a person who is more important in the family, and hence he will not have that many restrictions, and you will have this many restrictions. So coming from such strong patriarchal backgrounds, when we talk to men, and when we talk especially to, now corporate men too come with a lot of this conditioning, but there it is masked. They will, try and fit in as much as they can to the gender narrative. Now, in, unorganized sectors and in sectors where, there is no such mask, or there is no need for a mask like this, we see it very starkly. They will come from the space of these days. In fact, we have had these, dialogues where men have told us, ಈ ಹೆಂಗಸರಿಗೆ ಈಗ ಜೀನ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಂಡು ಫೋನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು, ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಹಾಳಾಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಸೇ ಎಸ್, ಮೇ ಬಿ, ಬಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ವಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೋರ್ ದಿಸ್? ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂತು ಈ ಐಡಿಯಾ ನಿಮಗೆ? ಯಾವಾಗಿಂದ ನಿಮಗೆ ಈ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಬಂತು? ಯಾಕೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಈ ಥರ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಬಂದಿದೆ? ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನಿಂಗ್ ದ ಜೆಂಡರ್ ರೋಲ್ಸ್, ಜೆಂಡರ್ ಸ್ಟೀರಿಯೋಟೈಪ್ಸ್. And I'm telling you this from my own personal experience, where men have come to our workshop sitting like this and saying, ಹೆಂಗಸ್ರಿಗೆ ಬಂದಿರೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಅವರಿಂದಾನೇ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಅವರು ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರ ಡ್ರೆಸ್ಸು, ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಸ್ಟೈಲು, ಅವ್ರು ಈ ಫೋನ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಏನೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೋ ಬಾ ಸಾಕಾಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಟು ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಮ್ಯಾನ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಟೆಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಸ್, ನಾಳೆ ಹೆಂಗಸ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ತೊಂದರೆ ಬಂದರೆ ನಾನಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
Wow, that's an amazing shift.
Yeah, so that is our success stories of having worked with many of the men from different communities.
That's definitely great change. So what do you go through in providing this support or listening to these stories? Day in and day out, it's like, yes, working for something better, but you do hear to these distress stories which are very disturbing. So what goes on your mind, or your team of counselors? How do you deal with it?
Yes, we get angry. You know, we want that utopian situation where we do not want women to ever feel less of themselves. We want to celebrate every woman and child who is born into this universe. And so when we do hear stories of rapes, molestations, of very small children, of, you know, elderly women, it does anger us, it does bother us. But in some sense, it also pushes us to do more. We are now thinking more and more of what else can we do? How much more can we provide this? What area can we move into? Where else do we intervene?
It's only empowering you to become big.
Bigger and bigger.
That's great. So what do you want from the audience that's watching this, or if somebody wants to join you, in what way can they join you, or in what other ways can someone be a part of an organization like Durga?
You have a mentality of safety. You want to think very deeply about safety for women, or you want to do a little bit towards this space, or you believe that this is a problem and there needs to be a resolution to this problem. There are a couple of ways to work with us. On the one hand, you can contribute to us. Now, we are a not-for-profit organization. We are a social sector organization, and we are forever seeking funds to help us grow and become bigger and do more in this space. Because our ideology is that women everywhere must be safe. So either you contribute to us, and here we're not asking for large contributions. All that we seek every time is give us small amounts of money over a period of time. You define that period of time for us. Give us those small sums of money which will help us run the organization. The other area is, if you think you have the time, maybe an hour, 2 hours, any amount of time, do reach back to us. We are always looking for volunteers. We need more advocates of gender justice. Every one of us can be an advocate of gender justice if you just start believing in the idea that each one of us has to be treated with equity. For us, that itself is a contribution.
ತುಂಬ ಜನ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಆದರೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ಸ್ ದೆಮ್ ಎ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್. ಸೊ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ when coming up to the regulations, so what changes do you think can be helpful in making the regulations to be running perfect and becoming an easier and safer society for women? So what are the changes you expect?
I'm not going to the regulations bit. What I want to do is each one of us, in some sense, starts taking responsibility. We take responsibility for our own safety. And at the same time, if we start taking the responsibility of the safety of everyone around us, believe me, that itself will mean and will go a long way to ensuring that violence against women ends.
So what are the odds you go through in the process of helping women who are abused or who are facing the challenge of violence?
One of the biggest challenges that we face is sometimes this kind of abuse is very evident to us. We as external members can see that there is a problem here, and the woman does not want to recognize and does not want to do something about it. That has been our biggest challenge. Convincing women that these are different forms of harassment that you must not put up with. When women say that, you know, there was this guy who flashed at me in the street, we are saying that is a form of harassment. Report it, talk about it, create a noise about it. And women will shrug it off and say, oh, but this happens to everyone. We want women to be more conscious that this kind of behavior is not appropriate. This is not acceptable. Because so far and so many years, we have started to normalize these things, so much so that we even give it very simple nomenclatures like eve teasing. It's harassment. Understand that this is a problem. And unless we start addressing these small instances of harassment,
Unless
we
it
will
is
not.
a very severe issue, people wouldn't mind it. And even on a serious issue, they do have a fear that maybe it is not perceived well.
Yeah.
So for such issues, do you think people can actually voice out? The women can actually speak out?
They must. They must start talking about it. Because it's enough that we have faced everyday instances that made us feel so much lesser of ourselves, right? People have clawed away at parts of us, and in this whole process we have lost our identity. So much so that many women actually, when they do not address small instances of harassment, are not able to handle the bigger ones.
On contrary, they do have this norm that men also go through it, and sometimes the women targets the in-laws family or the husband to just use these laws against them. So what do you have to say about that?
I want everyone's attention to be drawn to one simple statistic that I read very recently. 2019, there was a statistic that was put out that every day 87 women and girls were being raped. Now that for me is just the surface of the problem, because these 87 women or girls have actually reported this. How many of us have even reported any kind of instance of harassment that has happened to us? We are scratching barely the surface. So when people come to me and say that, you know, women are misusing the law, yes, we may be using, there may be women who have misused the law. But look at the ocean that we are operating from.
True.
And these women would be tiny molecules in that ocean.
ಈವ್ ಟೀಸಿಂಗ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೀವಿ, ಕಾರ್ಪೊರೇಟಲ್ಲಿ ಹರಾಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೀವಿ, ಬಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಡೊಮೆಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ವೈಲೆನ್ಸ್? What do you have to say about it?
So domestic violence, in many ways actually, I would want to clarify a small point here. A lot of people associate domestic violence with someone actually hitting you, your spouse or your intimate partner hitting you, physically abusing you. That becomes domestic violence. Many women do not recognize the other forms of violence that happens, which is equally damaging. Someone who probably harasses you by not giving you finances to support the family or the children. Someone who either sexually abuses you or denies sexual intimacy with you. That also is harassment, and that is domestic violence. Someone who gaslights you, because in my opinion, if somebody hits you or strikes you, you can heal those physical wounds, but gaslighting touches a deep psychological part of you, damages you at a very deep level. Now these are violence instances that women must recognize, must start recognizing that these are problems. They do not have to put up with this.
So do you have any workshops or anything that helps women of this particular sector to understand what they are going through and how they need to overcome that?
We do have sessions designed specifically to help women address the domestic violence that is probably happening to them. The other thing that we also want to bring to everyone's notice is it's a community problem. Today, if domestic violence is not being addressed by the woman, what stops the community from intervening? If today two of us decide that in my neighborhood I will not watch a woman screaming and shouting through the night, I will do something about it. Believe me, this problem will start seeing a difference. Today, most of us say, ಅದು ಗಂಡ ಹೆಂಡತಿ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಮು, ಅವ್ರು ಇವತ್ತೇನೋ ಜಗಳ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ನಾಳೆ ಸರಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಮ್ಮದೇ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಮು ಅಂತ. But believe me when I'm telling you this, it is not a ಗಂಡ ಹೆಂಡತಿ problem. This is a community problem. Each one of us has that responsibility to intervene. When someone is in distress, do reach in. Do check on that girl. I'm not asking you to go bash up that man, because none of us do have that capability of doing it. But what you can do is, if you can reach out to that woman and say, are you okay? As an active bystander, that becomes such an important role that we play in deterring harassment against women.
And even a man can be explained it better, maybe with whatever reason he was doing it. If one starts questioning it, and maybe he also starts thinking about what he's doing is right or a wrong thing. So I hope some change happens through this. And even rape, people would consider rape as a crime, but what happens with the girl? How that particular act has scarred her to maybe not even get married, or even if she marries, tomorrow she may not be even be able to have a happy married life. She may be completely oppressive towards that sexual intimacy. So how do you want to address people when they want to speak about it?
One clarification that I would want every one of us to really think about and to dwell on is rape is not a sexual act. It is an act of violence. And it must be treated like an act of violence. Right? It is important to address this as a instance that needs to be tackled with complete severity. Reason again here why I'm so aggressive about how we handle rape cases and how rape is dealt with in this country is because if you look at how girls are groomed or how are we talked to as we are growing, right, what do we typically do? We shame our genitalia. When a girl's breasts are growing, we start asking her to cover up, hide it, don't talk about it, don't show it. When we start menstruating, it's treated like a problem. So in essence, we are telling the girl that what is happening to you is not right.
True.
Right? What have we built within her is a great sense of guilt and discomfort around what is happening to her genitalia. So any form of violence against that hurts at a very deep level. And it is beyond the physical and something very psychological, very deep. So today when men rape in the name of teaching her a lesson or punishing her, they're quite literally doing that. They're punishing her for the rest of her life.
This is something which is much more deeper than a small act of violence as it portrayed, but it's a huge scarring thing for anyone who goes through it.
Absolutely.
I hope people understand that. You have immensely spoken about the violence women have been going through and the small remedies we can be a part of. So what are your last thoughts and what is the message you want to give our audience?
Be a Durga and respond to crime. All I want to tell all adults, and a lot of times we do hear about many men and women who come and tell us that we have reached our peak. I mean, this is what we have learned and this is how we will stay, and our growth is limited till this point. But I want every one of you to think about this a little bit. None of us are trees who have just reached a certain height and remain static. We are growing, evolving human beings. Every single day we are changing. So when we are changing not just our clothes and our food preferences, can we start changing our mindsets too? Little bit, one step at a time. Believe me, this little change in our mindsets will go a long way in ensuring that the future generation feels safe and secure, that her foremothers and foreaunts did something to make sure she was safe.
ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಎಂತಹ ಸಲಹೆಗಳನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ನಾವು ಬೆಳೆಸಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಎಂಪವರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೀನಾಕ್ಷಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಮುಗಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಮೀನಾಕ್ಷಿ.
Thank you so much.